tell, we are live, and I want to say hello to everybody here in our live stream. Both Laura and Victoria, thank you so much for joining today. And of course, everyone in the comments. It looks like Christy is already here. So thank you so much for joining us, Christy. I think as we begin, we'll start to see a few more jump on and say hello. As always, please feel free, all of you in the comments, to bring in your ideas as well. We want this to be a full discussion between us here as hosts, as well as you there in the comments. So feel free to give us your 2 cents. Okay, so as we begin, today we are going to be discussing the first part of The Lost World by Michael Crichton, which is the second in the duology of Jurassic Park. So the Jurassic Park duology. And as we begin here, I just want to make a few introductions, and so that everyone who may be new to either my channel or our hosts here channels, that you get an idea of who everyone is. So we're going to start there, and we're going to start with our first impressions as well. So we'll start on our far side. Victoria, how about you start us off? Introduce yourself and just let us know what your first impressions of the book are.
All right, I'm Victoria. My channel is called A Musical Bookworm, and my first impressions of The Lost World, it's so different than the first book. In a lot of ways, it's been a lot more political in nature. Like, we're getting a lot more of that information about, like, how does the rest of the world, like, how did it react to this Jurassic Park event? And we just there hasn't been a lot of action, but it's still been really intriguing as far as, like, the building up of the politics and, like, the motivations of these like different side characters, and how, like, different parts of the science world are reacting to potentially, the dinosaurs are still out there, and how everybody's reactions to it. So I'm wanting to see more dinosaurs. And I'm sure we're gonna get that in the second half. I'm sure the second half is gonna be a lot more action packed, because that's just what I've grown to expect after the first book. So I feel like it's been a slow build in the first half of the book, a lot slower.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, my name's Laura. My channel is Book Bubbler, and I totally agree with you, Victoria. Like, this is just a lot of, like, could you just get to the point? Could something happen? Like, it's so much time spent just talking about things and setting everything up, which, you're right, is interesting to a certain point, but we're 200 pages into this 400-page book, and you would expect, especially based on the first book, that something would have started to happen already. At least we would see some dinosaur action of some kind, or I don't know. It just sort of seems like he forgot about it for a little bit, or it's a lot of preamble for so far not much. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so it's okay.
Yeah, so I'm Danny. Obviously, this is my channel, Spinelli Speaks. I usually post a lot more. The last couple of months have just been a little weird, and I'll get to that on my channel in the future. But I am hosting the Readalong here for Jurassic Park and The Lost World. My first impressions of the book, first of all, I started listening to this book on audio and fell asleep and woke up with like 15% read, and I was like, nope, gonna have to go back. And that's not really the book's fault, because once I started actually physically reading the book, it was a lot. I did not fall asleep, let's just say that. But yes, slow build, very slow build. And this is almost the beginning that I would have expected in the first book, because I feel like it was building up what we are to expect about, like you were saying, Victoria, the political side of it, why people are doing this, who's involved, why they're interested. So I feel like this, like, slow build was almost my expectation for the first book. But in the first book, it was just like, bam, dinosaur attacks. Here's a baby getting his face eaten off. Like, what? Like, why? So for this one, like, I was expecting more of that, like, thrill, like, right in the first couple pages. And instead, we got, like, little nibbles here and there of certain things that may have been happening or were thought to have happened. And then these guys with, I kind of imagine, like, in Monsters, Inc., where they come out and they're, like, shaving that one monster, like, and everything. Like, that's what I envision when the ones come up onto the shore and, like, torch that dinosaur. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, we're just, what is happening? So for me, my first impressions of the whole beginning of this book, and even, like, because we were halfway through, I'm just like, what is happening? And I think for Jurassic Park, because I'm so familiar with the movie, it was easier to follow because you were kind of in your head following plot points that you remember from the movie. Whereas in this one, where I've seen The Lost World probably half as much as I've seen Jurassic Park, there's nothing to follow. Like, for me, I'm still trying to figure out, like, who's who, like, who's Vince Vaughn and who's, you know, this character and who's that character. I'm just like, I don't even know what's happening anymore. Like, so for me, it's a brand new book. There's brand new things happening. There's things that I didn't expect, the setup. And now I'm, like, rethinking the movie too, because as I'm thinking about the movie, like, I'm thinking about, like, and there's, like, an army on this island and they're, like, capturing these animals to bring back. And I'm like, no, this is not at all what this book is about. So for me, again, my first impressions, I'm just confused. Because I'm so poorly trying to put the movie and the book together. So I kind of scratched that, like, midway through the first section because it's not the same.
Yeah.
So that being pushed aside, I actually really like this one. And I was really hesitant because I've heard all the reviews, the mixed reviews, how this book wasn't even supposed to be a book. So it was kind of a pushed effort and all that. And actually, I like it. Like, I do like this buildup. I do like that I feel like we're getting to know the characters a little bit better, especially Malcolm, who, after our discussion of Jurassic Park, I really reevaluated my thoughts on Malcolm. If you saw that live show, you saw my friend Beth Ann, who not a Malcolm fan at all. And I started to think about what she was saying, and I was like, gosh, it's really true. Like, Malcolm's kind of a pessimistic, like, pot churner. Like, he's just, I'm smart and you're dumb, and this is what I think. And in this book, I feel like his characteristics really have changed, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but that's what I'm really interested in, is I feel like there's more character building in this, and there's more thought on the character and less on the dinosaurs, which I do want to see more dinosaurs. And we get to see some in this midsection when they're kind of, like, observing them, and obviously the Tyrannosaurus marking his scent on the Jeep, which I'm like, I would be wiping that off immediately. Like, you're just going to bring them back to your camp with this anal secretion on your windshield.
So gross.
And, like, even when the guy, like, wipes it off on his pants, I'm like, why are you wiping that off on your pants? Like,
That's so gross.
they could smell you.
Yeah, that was a really odd scene that I was like, was that necessary? Was that a necessary scene to the story? I don't know.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. And Melinda, so true here, you know, the description and the scientific pieces, you know, the details of every piece, and, you know, describing to the children how this, you know, high hide works. Everything was very descriptive. And yes, it's, you know, something that is different. And not to say that Jurassic Park was not descriptive, because it was, but I feel like this went into a different realm. Like, it just feels more, I don't know. I like these descriptions. Like, I'm really feeling like I understand what's happening and why it's happening. So yeah, I don't know. interesting so far. And that I'm like totally doing this huge walk around the pond explanation. So I apologize. I'm very long-winded. But yeah, so I'm very intrigued. I'm not like I was in Jurassic Park where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to keep reading and what's going to happen. It's more like, I need to keep reading and find out what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like it's just a different feeling. So anywho, my long walk around the pond to explain that is what my first impression is. So yes, and thank you all of you who are here in the comment section, adding your first impressions as well. Keep them coming. We love to include you. And if you are watching this in replay, please feel free to comment below on any of your thoughts on the first half of Lost World as well. So let's move on and have Danny stop talking for a little bit. I kind of briefly, I know, I talk too much.
You're fine.
Don't worry about it. You're good.
We were kind of talking about the science and whatnot, and luckily we have in our ranks a booktuber or past booktuber who has a scientific background, and she was very nice enough to create a video for us. Her name is Sarah from Sarah MG Reads. She doesn't really post too much on her channel anymore, but she uploaded a video last night for us about the science of Jurassic Park. And I know I watched it, and I'm not sure if you ladies did in its entirety, but for me, I really enjoyed it. What did you guys think? Did you guys see her video?
No, I haven't had enough time. I thought I would today when I got home, but I got home like 10 minutes before this started. So that's my first job after this ends, is going to watch that because I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear about it.
I was able to watch it this morning and it was so good. It was so interesting. So major props to Sarah with researching that as well. Yeah, it really fascinated me too, as she was talking about like also just the representation of dinosaurs and how like that's always been fascinating to me, of like we really don't know what they even would have looked like, and if they are more bird-like, they could have been like fully feathered, they could be looking like chickens, like, and Jurassic Park and the movie specifically is one of the reasons that we think of them as these big reptile creatures. It's like the power of the media, you know, like that's what you think of. And it's just so interesting to speculate on like, well, actually, it maybe is unlikely for them to look like reptiles and more likely for them to look like birds. That's really a fun concept. And I enjoyed Sarah talking about too, like the science of what is actually possible, and how the book kind of expands upon that with our imaginations, but you know, kind of how close it gets, and the fact that I didn't know. This was really interesting to me that we haven't been able to clone anything avian. So even just that fact of like no one's ever cloned a bird, and that's
interesting.
Obviously, like you couldn't clone a dinosaur because we can't clone a bird right now in science. So yeah, just a lot of really interesting thoughts. I love the video.
Yeah, she did an excellent job. I think I might even rewatch it because it was so interesting. And yes, unable to clone anything avian, including anything that wasn't an egg, and then kind of explaining how Michael Crichton like helped push that along by like saying that they were creating their own eggs in Jurassic Park. So that kind of helps. So it kind of makes you feel better as a reader knowing that the author really did his research, really tried to close as many gaps and not going too far into fantasy. Because obviously, like she said, you know, he took little pieces of science and then expanded them into areas that they can't go in real life, but can in the book. It also really made me like freak out about the fact that birds are dinosaurs. Because like there are birds everywhere. And when I was a kid, one of my favorite and most terrifying movies was Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. And now I'm just like, that was the original Jurassic Park. Like, what the heck?
Like mini velociraptors all over your yard, Danny.
Yes. Well, and isn't it like, so for birds, isn't the hawk family, aren't they called raptors? Isn't that a raptor family? Like, I'm just like, oh God, now I have to fear hawks. So Sarah in her video even says, don't worry, Danny, you can't clone dinosaurs, so you don't have to worry about a raptor. And I'm like, now I do. Now I do. Because there are real raptors. But yeah, her video was excellent. I really enjoyed it. And I think too, she brings up what I was really fascinated about was when she started to talk about DNA and the discovery of DNA, and the scientist Rosalind, and I can't remember the last name, who was really not credited with the discovery of DNA. And I think it holds so true the amount of misrepresentation or just lack thereof of women in science. And it even holds true in these books. I mean, look at your female characters. Sattler is like a scientist with legs, and then the little girl is annoying and really wish she wasn't even in the book. And then in this one, we have Sarah Harding, who's kind of like a whisper in the wind, and she's like not even there yet. And quite frankly, we just see her get thrown off the side of a boat because she's an idiot and tells the guy that nobody knows I'm here.
Yeah, I know.
So you see that again. You see that this representation of women isn't the best. And it's been like that for far too long. Let's just be real. So I like that she brought that piece up. And she's even like, oh, this isn't related to Jurassic Park, but you know what it is. So I really enjoyed that piece of her video as well. And yeah, Victoria, when she was saying like that dinosaurs would have feathers, just made me really rethink like what would T-Rex look like. I mean, could you imagine how big those feathers would be? If man lived with T-Rex, their huts would be made out of feathers, like lost feathers of T-Rexes. It'd be like their little huts. That's all I kept thinking. So, and it looks like in our comment area too, it looks like there were some other people that really liked that birds and dinosaurs, which, I mean, it makes sense. And I think too, in science, I think it's like crocodiles and alligators like are descendant from certain species of dinosaurs or what have you, but even like an ostrich, think about their build and their skeleton. I mean, yeah, I would believe it. Okay, so kudos to Sarah, and thank you so much for that video because it was excellent. Lots of information that we didn't even discuss here. I think it's only 20 minutes long, the video. So definitely check that out. I do have Sarah's channel linked below. So it should be the very first video that you see. And like I said, it's excellent. I would highly recommend that you check that out after you're done watching us here. So let's move on to some more of the book. Let's see here Melinda has in Keeper of the Lost Cities and Other Books since JB Dinos have feathers on. Very nice. Very cool.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. And I actually had that book on my list of books to read this year. And then it's a chunkster because the whole series is ginormous. Mm-hmm. But I think I might actually try to read that this coming March. Because I really do want to read that. My stepdaughter has read the entire series more than once, and she loves that series. So I think I might have to finally get it read this year. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so let's move on. I talked a little bit about Malcolm. And ladies, if you can help me, what do we remember about Malcolm from the first book? Like, what happens to Malcolm?
I definitely thought he died at the end.
Yeah.
I thought he was dead.
Yeah, like you don't see him die. You don't see him die, but they do say no, he didn't make it. So
yeah, he was dead.
Yeah.
He was dead. There was a funeral. He died. So our first question of the day is, what do we think about this resurrection and, you know, his characteristics compared to the first book? Because obviously this is a book really centered all around Malcolm. So, you know, what do we think about this resurrection, first of all? Because he was only slightly dead or whatever it is. I'm thinking of like the Princess Bride now.
Yeah.
Like he's only
exactly
slightly dead.
Yeah.
I don't know if Miracle Max came around, but you know, he was only slightly dead. What do we think about that for this book?
Victoria, go ahead.
I don't like resurrection tropes, and it did feel very like, oh, well, he just made it, you know, and it felt, it's very obvious that it was like, we just need to figure out how to get into a second book, and we brought a main character back, and I don't like that. That's a major, I think that's just a major flaw just from the get-go of the book, personally. But I like Malcolm as a character, actually. I'm a kind of a fan of his character. I like his worldview and his eccentric thoughts and his dialogue. And I think, I don't know, maybe Sarah mentioned this in her video, but like, I don't know if Malcolm sort of has represented like some of the author's thoughts as well. I feel like she mentioned that. I can't remember now, but
I think how she said it was, there's a lot of like stigma or slighting towards science, which is represented in this Malcolm character. So I don't know that it's technically that it's Michael Crichton's feelings, but this, you know, kind of poo-pooing on science is all within this Malcolm character, at least in the first book.
Right. Yeah, and he did in the first book seem more like he would just have long dialogue paragraphs of just like expounding ideas and philosophy, and that was kind of his purpose in the first book. And I don't know, I don't know why he's been brought back exactly after dying in the first book. Like, it seemed pretty official that he was dead in the first book. So I don't love that, but I have fun with his character, so I'm kind of like forgiving it in my mind at the same time while I'm reading it. So I don't know. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, kind of the same. I mean, he in the first book he is very, let me tell you what I know and how I know it and why this is right, or like you said, expanding on all these things that possibly could happen, and it is like sometimes a page of dialogue of him just rambling about what he thinks potentially could be happening, which was a little like, okay, after the first couple, like, oh, all right, buddy, could you like say something of substance? I do like him as a character. I think it's funny. Like, I know I can't really disassociate the first book and the first movie. Like, they're just mushed in my head now. But even when I was reading his dialogue in the first book, I could just hear Jeff Goldblum saying these lines. It just seemed like, well, he, you know, it just seemed like him. It seems like there's less of that here somehow, and which is fine, absolutely fine. I don't know. I do like him. I like the shift. He seems to have matured a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, the whole resurrection thing. I know Crichton got the idea from Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle. You know, you think he dies at Reichenbach Falls with Moriarty, and he doesn't really. So that's why he got the idea once this film did so well, and they decided that they're going to make a second film. So I should write a second book too. Like, who's the most popular character? Malcolm. So we'll just make him be alive now. So
it feels forced. It feels forced to me in that respect, and I think that's what bugs me a little bit.
Yeah, totally valid. I totally agree. It's a little annoying, but it's also sort of like, you know, what are you going to do? It wouldn't be the same without him in the movies, especially. I have never seen the second movie, so I don't know anything about anything from here forward. But so far, I don't know. I like it, but yeah. he shouldn't exist, but I get it.
He shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a prime example of when, and Victoria, you kind of mentioned this, when the media takes over and changes the trajectory of a story. Because I believe Ryan was telling us that, you know, this was only supposed to be a 1-book thing. So it was done. It was over.
Bless you.
Sorry.
And because while they were creating the movie, which was while he was finishing the book, I think, and then moving on to the next book, they didn't kill him in the movie because they're like, we need to keep this going, you know?
Right. We need Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, along with everything else is why he was resurrected. For me, I could go either way on resurrection stories. My thing is I don't like when villains are resurrected because that just annoys me, because it's like, no, we killed you, you're done, goodbye, new villain. That's not fair, because it annoys me. It also annoys me that Superman's only one thing that he can't be around is kryptonite, which doesn't even exist on this planet. So like he's pretty much just can do whatever he wants. That annoys me as well. But anywho, when it's not a villain, when it's like a character you like, I'm okay with it. 'Cause I'm like, yay! But I wish they would have fixed it in the book. I wish they would have made it more ambiguous that what did he die, or, you know, like, so that it could have been more of like, we didn't know. Because I just feel like you said, Victoria, this is forced. Like, it's so, like, it literally says, I was only slightly dead. Okay, now you're making a joke, because that is literally a line from Princess Bride.
Yep.
So for me, in this particular story, it's irritating, the resurrection, just because it doesn't even explain, like, I got airlifted out. Thankfully, because of all the morphine that this botanist gave me, I was able to survive. You know, like, nothing was explained, and all he has is a limp. So that's irritating to me, because nothing was explained. But for the rest of the story, I do like Malcolm. And I feel like he is much different than he was before. Like you were saying, Victoria, he was going into these long, like, full page, just mumbo jumbo of his intelligence, just, you know, diarrhea. And I think in one of the videos I said, like it was morphine induced, like everything he knew was coming out of his mouth. But in this one, he's more quiet. He really doesn't like tell people. But other than that, he really doesn't do his little, like, putting people in their place thing. He's hardly brought up chaos theory. He's brought it up, like, under his breath a little bit, but he really hasn't been that, you know, overbearing kind of, you know, just pessimistic kind of character he was in the first book. I do have an issue with his character in the sense that, why does a mathematician know all of these things about dinosaurs? I have a real issue with that. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, every time there's a dinosaur in the scene, he's like explaining their entire, like, physiology. I'm like, what is happening? You're a mathematician on chaos theory.
Calm down,
Which
Ross.
isn't even, like, it's not even in the same realm of paleontology or anatomy of animals. Like, it's to be honest, it's pissing me off.
Yeah,
it's like really annoying. And that was
convenient for the story.
Yes.
They just let the characters just know stuff about dinosaurs.
Yes.
Super
And
specific
I think,
scientific stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And Sarah brings that up in her video too. Like, this Sattler character, who's a botanist, knows the anatomy of, and I'm like, that is so true. And it's happening in this book again. Malcolm all of a sudden is like, I'm like, did you have a near-death experience and then just decided to learn about dinosaurs? Because, I mean, you know everything there is to know about these dinosaurs. I don't get it. Like when he and Melinda brought it up earlier, like he kind of freaked out in the Jeep when the Tyrannosaurus Rex came. Like he just went still.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like it was enough. Like you literally almost died because of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you're gonna put yourself onto an island where none of these animals have been like fenced in or anything. You're just gonna like put yourself right in the eye of the storm again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
In many ways with his character. In many ways.
Yes. Which, I mean, for some, they're probably like, oh my gosh, he's such a hero. He's so strong. He's like looking his enemy in the face. And I'm like, yeah. And he knows that male Tyrannosaurus Rexes excrete their scent from their anal glands.
Mm-hmm.
How does he know this? There's no reason for him to know that.
Yeah, you're right.
You know.
Oh, it kills me. It kills me.
And this is pre-Google as well. So it's not like they didn't just Google stuff in the 90s. Like, yeah, they would have had to like really, really put effort into researching.
Yeah,
to learn things like that.
Very specific research
Yeah,
papers.
like Christy says here, we can still get salty about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like my main issue with this book, because I am enjoying it. I am, but that's like my main issue is like, no, Malcolm, you do not know all this stuff. You don't. So let's move on before Danny gets too heated here. Let's talk more about the characters. So we have other characters other than Malcolm, obviously. There is this Thorne guy, Dr. Thorne. There's this Levine, which I keep calling him Adam Levine, but we know that's not his name. Richard Levine.
Yeah.
We have Sarah Harding, who is kind of in the beginning. We know who she is, but she's not yet really in the scene. And then the kids, which we'll get to in a little bit, so we'll skip them for right now. This Eddie Carr, I think his name is. So what are we thinking about characters so far? Laura, do you want to start?
Not really, but I will.
Any of the other characters in the book?
Again, I'm getting them all confused in my brain. And I had the same problem for the first half of Jurassic Park too. I mean, I've seen the movie a lot, but I'm someone who will rewatch things 1,000 times and still miss big things like place names and character names and like lines. I don't know if I'm inattentive or what, but so it's blurring of people. And then I keep thinking Alan Grant. He's
not in this one.
I'm just confused all the time. Like, I know the kids, which I know we'll get to, and I like what we have seen of Sarah so far, but again, it's not very much because she's just like bopping around doing weird stuff. I don't know. It's all fine. I feel like everything is just sort of fine.
Yeah.
Everyone.
What about you, Victoria?
Laura, I have the same problem, particularly with this book. Like when you said Eddie, I was like, who's Eddie again? Like, what does Eddie do? You know, I don't feel like a lot of these side characters have been very well cemented in our brains yet, and I think that's just how it's been so far. But I did notice, like Danny brought up the women issue of women portrayal so far, which I think unfortunately was really common with like 90s books and stories that were, I mean, probably more geared toward men than women. Like, let's like marketing wise, like this is probably more, that's who they were thinking was probably more going to read this, you know? So I was like, oh, we have hope for a Sarah Harding character who's like, she's a badass and she like stands on her own 2 feet and then, and then she gets pushed over a boat. So, I still have hope for her. So I'm like, okay, I'm rooting for a good, strong female character here. And that she's going to survive. I hope.
I hope so too.
I assume. I don't feel like we're done with her character yet. I'm assuming she makes it, but I I was interested to see Dodgson as a returning character, actually, because
Oh
to
yeah.
me, he was a little bit like a very minor character in the first book, and it seems like he's gonna be the like one of the main, like the main villain, even perhaps in the Lost World. So that was really interesting to me, and I'm curious to see like what happens with that storyline. But yeah, I guess I like Malcolm, even though it's just a weird thing for him to be in the book, but I like his character as like one of my favorite characters, I guess. And I'm rooting for Sarah Harding to rise above.
Absolutely. And I think if you're familiar with the movie, she is played, I believe, by Julianne Moore. I think that's the Sarah Harding character. And in the movie, she is badass. She is like an individual, and at every turn, she does not let Malcolm help her. She wants to do it on her own. She wants to discover things on her own. So I think we will definitely see more of her, and I'm hoping that she is written that way as well. I'm hoping that we see her, rise above, and just knowing that the first couple words of the next chapter, we know that she survives, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But like, when Dodgson was talking to her, I was like, girl, he won't kill you. Like, he is going to try to kill you. You keep telling him that nobody knows I'm here. Yeah. Nobody back home knows
Super
I'm
obvious.
here. Here knows I'm here. I just showed up. I'm like, get ready. You're going over. And I was just like, and I'm thinking at some point she's going to start in her head thinking, why does he keep asking me all these questions? Because even myself, when I go to the coffee shop, if someone says, are you here alone? I go, no, my husband's in the car waiting for me. And if I don't be out there in 1 minute, he's going to come in with a shotgun. Like, like it's just, but yes, the female characters, not very many and not very intriguing other than Sarah. Sarah's going to have potential, but this Kelly, who we'll talk about later, again, just a girl that is smart, we have been told, but doesn't appear very smart.
But not as smart as the boy.
Yes. And the boy, again, is like a guru of something, he might not know about dinosaurs, but he knows everything about these computers. So
yeah.
Anywho, with the characters, yes, many of them are forgettable because I feel like the more forgettable they are, the more likely they are the ones that are going to get eaten. Because as we saw in the previous book, it was like all of the villains got eaten and all the good people survived. And I think when you know the least about somebody, they're probably going to get a raptor in their face. So, of course, Malcolm, I think he's just essentially like meant to be like your favorite character. I do like Dr. Thorne. I think he is an interesting character, and I'm not sure if he is represented in the film, but I have a feeling I know who he is, and his fate. But again, this book is completely different from the movie, so I'm not really leaning on the movie at all. I do not like Richard Levine. I think that
I don't either.
He's a trust fund baby who decides that he's untouchable and that he's going to go into this island and find all these dinosaurs and he's going to just be the, golden boy. Even when they were saving him from the T-Rex nest, and he's like, they're not even following us. They're not going to follow us, because I'm just like, dude, do you have no idea? Like, you could get eaten by these creatures. Like, and it's not just the T-Rexes. What if the raptors were lying in wait for you? Like, I don't feel like they understand the severity of their location. Like, these raptors, these raptors are natural born hunters. And you're watching them from afar, but they're pack animals. And that they are super silent and they just come out of nowhere. How do you know they're not like hunting you right now? That's what creeps me out about these kind of books is, and then these people just, oh, we're gonna go in this hidey hide thing up here and just watch everything. What? So I don't like him. I think he's frivolous, and I kind of hope he gets it, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, he's been built as a main character, and like that's his character flaw is his arrogance, right? That's like very overdone with his character even. But like I don't feel like he's gonna be eaten by anyone because I feel like we are supposed to kind of like him too. Just based on the way his character has been written so far. I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, I think with his relationship with the kids and his wanting his
that redeems him.
A redeeming quality of him is his huge interest in teaching others, like not just kids, but he wants people to know. He wants them so badly to understand these animals. And he doesn't consider these animals predators in the sense of like, they weren't attacking us. They were, how does he say it? They were protecting their nest. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, whatever. It's a T-Rex. It's attacking you.
A funny scene also along those lines was like he was sleeping in a tree and the raptors were like trying to get him and he just like spent the night in the tree. And then he said, and then in the morning the raptors were just gone. I was like, how is that possible?
Right.
They just left. They got bored and walked away.
They got bored. And like they totally would have, like raptors, if they're as like scary and smart as we are supposed to believe that they are, they would have gotten you out of that tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And for him to say he didn't know what attacked Diego, a raptor.
Yeah.
You saw the clawed toe. Yeah. It was the raptor. So they got you. They got your scent. They know who you are. But yeah, I mean, and now we have the villains coming. They're there, so that Dodgson and the guy with the B name, which I think is an original name too from Jurassic Park, one of the people from the other bioengineering company.
Basilton,
like that. Yeah. And then this Howard Hick or King. Thank you.
Wow, that's really good. I'm like,
who has come out of nowhere? Like, I mean, we don't really know anything about these people other than they want this material before these other characters can get it.
And I feel like mustache twirling kind of villains too.
Yes, very much. Well, I feel like the Howard King, he's kind of just like been pushed into the ride. Like I feel like he's being blackmailed into this situation by this Dodge. I can't even say his name. I don't know why. Dodge. We're just gonna
Dodgson.
Okay. And he, yes, like you said, Victoria, he is the true villain. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there because right now I'm not really sure how. And the fact that these individuals are doing all of these things, like at a drop of a hat, you're just going to fly to Costa Rica. And I mean, it's all very like, do you have billions of dollars that you're just able to like do what you want when you want, all that kind of stuff? It just, I think Christy in the comments brought it up, like you're just suspended in this reality.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think I was frozen there for a little bit. I apologize. I hope you could still hear my audio. Okay, so let's move on. We kind of omitted the kids for a reason. And we're going to talk about them right now because quite frankly, why are there kids in this book? There were kids in the first book and now there's kids in this book. Why are there kids in this book? I don't get it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't get it either. It's like he thought they worked great the first time. Let's just copy paste and stick 2 more kids on,
Yeah, unfortunately, that's really how it feels. It really does feel like we're just rehashing. There's a couple kids, a boy and a girl. Like it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that it feels lazy. I don't know. I actually really like these kids. Like they're a little bit more like we've fleshed them out a little bit more. But at the same time, it does feel like, oh, and like Levine's gonna be kind of this father figure who's probably gonna protect them the rest of the book, like Alan Grant was protecting. Like it's just a little bit like, really, we couldn't have had something else going on.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I like the kids, but
yeah,
I really only like the boy. And
Right.
the only reason why you only like the boy is because the boy is the only character that was given any real substance to be added here that we've seen so far. Now, if you're familiar with the movie, they only have one, and the backstory of that one child is not the backstory of either of these children. So these are like completely new characters to me. And it just feels like you said, Victoria, it's so lazy. It's like we had kids in the first book. Let's have kids in this book. To what end? Why? To make it more suspenseful? Because you know you can't kill kids in a book. Like in this kind of book, that is, you know, you can't. I remember my brother, my youngest brother, whenever we used to watch shows and there were kids in it, he's like, you know, they're not going to die because you can't kill kids on, you know, primetime TV. And I was like, really? He's like, when's the last time you saw him kill a kid? And I'm like, you're so right. You're so right. So it's like to add this suspenseful piece because, oh my gosh, there's kids involved. And of course, kids aren't as smart as adults. So they're going to get killed first or something. But instead, what he does in both situations is he make these kids like uber smart, and they're you know, helping the adults, and it's cookie cutter. It's so as soon as, and I knew they were going to get there. Like I knew we wouldn't have these kids in the beginning if they weren't going to end up in the book. But it's just so lazy. It is. That's a perfect word for it, is just lazy. So, I mean, and then here's the issue with the children is, again, we see the female character doesn't have anything to add at this point. In this particular instance, she's comes from a poor family. She's smart, but she doesn't have the same advantages as the male child. Then the male child, he's like this uber smart kid who's passed a couple of grades and is like a computer whiz. It's even said, like, when he interacts with his mother's even so afraid of how smart he is. So it's like, why couldn't it have that been the female character? Why is it always the boy or the male character that has all of these, you know, supernatural abilities? You know, it's frustrating as a female reader to not be able to really relate to your female characters. And we saw that in the first one. And I think, like you said, Victoria, it's not written for females or someone who, you know, represents as female. It's meant for a male dominated, you know, He-Man kind of audience.
Well, which I assume, like Michael Crichton's books in general, like I think he knew who was buying his books and he knew his audience. So yeah. I can't argue with those points. I think you're right.
Yeah. That's why many of us have our favorite show when we were growing up, Xena, Warrior Princess, because I mean, that woman knew how to throw a circular thing right in your throat. And I'll take that all day. Especially on the one episode where she meets Hercules, because Heaven Sorbo, man, whew. That man Oh, that's a different live show. So let's
Jurassic
move on
Park
away
After
from
Dark.
the kids. After dark.
Yeah.
So we're kind of thinking the kids are just an easy, tick the box, I think is what Melinda had said, being able to do that. And she brings up heritage, which I thought was interesting because the fact that Arby is a Black boy is brought up a couple of times. And I think in the first book, I can't remember, but I feel like there was points too where nationalities were brought up a couple of times in certain instances. And I think definitely in the 90s, what we know of the 90s, to me, these books are predominantly white. So it's like you're just kind of putting in like a token, like we're just going to put a little bit of diversity in here and it's going to be the little boy, so I appreciate Melinda bringing that up because I think that is a good and fair point as well. And I think nowadays too, we are seeing more diversity in writing, but not enough still. But I think as authors go, you write what you know. So depending on what you are, what your surroundings are like, I think that's a little bit, again, another topic, but.
This is slightly off topic, but also sort of along the lines of what you're talking about. But I was rewatching the movie, the first Jurassic Park movie, and there's a scene, that very famous scene where Dodgson and Nedry sit down and have lunch, and he's showing him the container where he's going to put the embryos in. In the background, they're supposed to be in Costa Rica. In the background is a Mexican song. And Julio, my husband and I were laughing because we're like, yeah, they wouldn't, like, that wouldn't be what's on the radio in Costa Rica. Like it was a song from Mexico. And so we were laughing. They weren't as like careful about those details in the 90s when they were making those movies and stuff. But I just found it funny.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I think you see that in a lot of different movies, depending on when they're made and I think the farther we get through history, the more of those discrepancies we find. I think people are definitely more conscious and more, they think more, I think they're more, deliberate about how they do things, songs they'll pick and that kind of stuff nowadays, just because we've become more of a conscientious, and not that we are a good now, we have a lot of issues. The more and more we go, the better and better we get. And we still make more of an effort, and we have still a long ways to go, but every year I feel like there's more causes, there's more things that we as a world try to rectify and say, yeah, that was not right and we were wrong, and now we're going to do this moving forward. So anywho, yes, a little off topic, but
sorry.
No, not at all. It goes along with, the idea of us being readers and identifying these things. Because if we didn't identify those things, I think it would show that we aren't that good of a reader, especially with this, 30-year gap of time between when this was published and now, and seeing those things. And I think Sarah even mentioned, in the first book, the amount of fat shaming and different things. Don't think about those things unless you think about those things. You know what I mean? Unless it's a thing that comes up and is universally hey, now, you don't think about it because you've been societally programmed to be that's supposed to be funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's good as readers that we are identifying these things, because obviously they should be identified. But anywho, let's go ahead and I think we only we're almost up to an hour, so we're riding right on time here. I was going to have us talk about, like, do we like this book more, better, worse, and different than the first one? But I think we've kind of hit on that a few different ways throughout our discussion here. So I'm going to skip that. But as far as the book itself, do you have any like feelings about what could possibly happen in the rest of the book? Do you have any predictions by any means?
Not really. I think I'm so thrown off by the pacing and the setup of the first book still, that this book is not that at all. That it's still sort of like, is something going to happen? Like, I don't have a good sense of rhythm yet for characters or for how the story is going, and to be halfway and still sort of be like, well, I don't know. I hope it picks up. I think it would have to, and you would have to have more things happening. So I really don't. I'm just sort of sitting on the boat, going along for the ride, you know, like, what's coming up ahead? I don't know. I mean, I'm really not sure.
Just don't get pushed off the boat.
Yeah, no, I don't tell someone. No one knows I'm here either.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I know.
How about you, Victoria? Any predictions?
So I remember how the second movie ends.
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't know if I don't know how different it is from the book, but I do remember a little bit of how, like, what ends up happening in the second movie. So I don't know if that's cheating if I say, but I know, like, I think dinosaurs make it to the West, to San Diego or something. Like they bring the Tyrannosaurus Rex to San Diego, I think is what happens in the movie. So I don't know if we're going there, if we're bringing the dinosaurs to America. Like, we'll see. I don't know.
I am on the same path as you, Victoria. Like I said, I've seen the second movie numerous times, not as much as the first one, but to me, from what I can recall of the second movie, they spend almost the entire time on the island dealing with these people. And then, like, the last 20 minutes of the movie, it's all of a sudden they're in San Diego, all this stuff happens, and then it's over. So it's like very, like, you know, quick. And I feel like, for me, the way, or what we know of what's left book, it was all set up, it was all this stuff, that there's no way that all of these things that happen on the island and all the things that happen in San Diego can happen in the rest of this book. But where would they have gotten this information for the movie? So something of that nature has to happen, right? So yes, I don't have predictions, but I'm really, like, trying to figure out, how did they get the information that they used to adapt? Like, why is the movie so different? Like, it's so different, and it's really, like, messing with me because I don't know what to think about the rest of this book. I am really eager to find out because, like we said, there's been no action so far. And the villains have not yet met the heroes. So we're, like, waiting for that, you know, climactic burst of energy to happen. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, what is their purpose? Like, is the Levine camp, is their purpose to just observe and take pictures and bring specimen, like what are they bringing back? Because you have to bring something back, right? You cannot come without, you know, proof, right? Science is about proof, evidence, that kind of stuff. And as we know, the surrounding islands just come and torch everything. So I don't know what their purpose is, as well as I don't know what the villain's purpose is. Are they going there to bring back animals? From the movie, that seems to be what it is. But we know that they were talking about, like, putting it in a academic periodical, and that's how they're going to start to prove that they're dinosaurs. So I don't know what their purposes are, the heroes or the villains. I don't get it yet. So I'm really hoping that it's explained, because I feel like that's really going to be how I rate this book, is how well it ends. Because right now I feel like it could either wrap it up all very nicely, because it is the end of a duology, or it's going to end really poorly and be the reason why this book doesn't get as much credit as the first book does.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Not really predictions, just more confusion. So anywho, we have some people that are kind of feeling the same way as us. So it looks like Melinda's here for the ride, just like Laura. And the book will shock all of us at the end, as opposed to what the predictions are. Oh, that's interesting. I hope so. I would love to be shocked.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, because it's just, I don't know. So, and it's going to make me look at the movie a lot differently, because I feel like the first book did such a nice job of holding true. I mean, there's obviously things that were different, but yeah, I don't know what to think about the second movie now. Like, I feel like maybe it's a completely different movie. And there are movies that are like that. I have read books and then I watched the movie and I'm like, did they just take the title? Because that is not the movie, or that's not the book. So maybe that's the case. But
from what I remember of the second movie, the premise is actually pretty similar. Like, there's a site B, and like, it is the second island. Like, it's actually pretty true to that premise, as far as like, we're going to a second island, not the main, not the Jurassic Park island. And that dinosaurs have created their own ecosystem, and that they're breeding, and that it's a wild, right? It's wild, it's not controlled, and they're just running rampant, and the site has been abandoned. That premise, I think, is also the second movie, but it's the little details about the movie that I don't remember. So I'm looking forward to rewatching once we finish reading. I definitely want to rewatch the second one, because I don't remember it as well as I know the first movie.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you have it spot on. It does. The premise is there, like the reason, the island itself. But from what I remember, like, these hero people only go there because there's all these other people already there that are like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to rewatch.
I don't think it was abandoned. Like, people, like, there's people vacationing on this island at the beginning of the first movie.
Which is the beginning of Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Yeah. So we start the second movie with the little girl being bit by a mysterious lizard creature on the beach. So there was this family vacationing on that island. So that island wasn't closed in the second movie. Like, people were going to it. Like, the public was going to it, I guess. But yeah, I have to rewatch the second movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, as readers, does the movie really matter? I mean, it's all about the book, right?
This is, you know, this is one of the only stories where maybe unpopular opinion, but I love the movies more than I've loved the book so far. Just more I think they're just iconic, and like the first movie especially is just a complete classic, and the music score and the Spielbergness of it. Like, I love that early Spielberg, like, prime, when he was making all those movies in the 90s. And so to me, this is one of the only book series that I've ever experienced where I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, I might prefer the movie. But that's very, very controversial of me, probably.
I agree.
No, I agree too so far.
Yeah.
I've never seen the second movie, and I'm wondering now if it matters if I watch it now or if I wait to watch it afterwards. If it's that different, and I'm already confused and sort of like, should I just watch it now? Does it matter? Like, I don't know.
I feel, and I definitely agree with the first movie, and I think we'll definitely discuss this more in the next live show, because we'll have finished the book, so it'll make a little bit more sense with the movie. For me, I think I like this second book more for that reason, because I feel like I understand the purpose of the movie. Because I feel like in the movie, and it's been a little bit since I've seen it, but I feel like things just happened, but we really didn't get an explanation of like why everyone was going where, and how Malcolm was involved, and how the Sarah, like it was all just so confusing in the book, but I mean in the movie, but you just went with it, because when you're watching a movie, you don't pause it and think about it, you just keep going. So I like that there's way more, thought put into the backstory, which I do like. But yeah, I mean the movies are, except the third one. The third one can suck it. I really didn't like that one. I watched it several times, but I didn't
That
like
one.
that.
I barely remember.
Oh,
I've never seen it.
it's terrible. Okay, anywho, I have kept you all for an hour. I want to thank all of you so much here in our live stream. Laura and Victoria, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me today and discussing this. I know all of our lives are very hectic right now, so I truly appreciate you joining me today. It's been very fun chatting with the two of you. I also want to thank everyone in the comments. Thank you so much for being here and, adding your thoughts on the books as well. And anyone watching in replay, thank you so much. If you've made it this far, that's awesome. We really appreciate you being here as well. Make sure you leave any comments below of anything that we may have discussed here that you had some additional thoughts or comments you wanted to add. We are happy to hear of that. Really appreciate all of you, truly. So as a couple of reminders, we do have that Discord still going on where you can chat about the book while you're reading. That is on Ramsey's Discord. So Ramsey from Rajathon. I have linked his channel below. And I don't know if the Discord is linked. I think it is. Yes, the Discord is linked below as well. So feel free to jump onto that. There is some chatting in there a little bit. And if there's spoilers, Victoria, help me out. Is it the colons or brackets, or what is it to hide your spoiler?
The two straight. It's the two straight lines. Put
Okay.
the two straight lines on either side of your text.
Okay. Perfect. And then we still have bingo going on, which it's not really bingo. It's more of like a ladder kind of thing.
Yeah, like a checklisty bingo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fun stuff in there, including, I think, walking around like a T-Rex in public. And posing like Jeff Goldblum, which if you are doing that, make sure you use our hashtag JP World 2021, because that would be really cool to have like a cover photo of everyone's, Jeff Goldblum pose. Mm-hmm. That'd be super fun. For upcoming videos, like I mentioned earlier in the video, we do have Sarah's scientific video that was posted last night. Mm-hmm. Her channel is linked below. We still have Victoria's video coming up about the music of Jurassic Park. And then we'll have Ryan from Seeking Stories. He will be doing a video about the adaptation of Jurassic Park. And then our final live show will be next 2 Saturdays from now, not next Saturday, but Saturday, October 30th at 11 a.m. So a little bit of different timing. I know it may be trick or treat that day. So we want to get it a little bit earlier in the day. And depending on my host, we may be dressed up again this year. So make sure you join us with our final discussion of The Lost World. Well, until then, I hope everyone is doing well and reading. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, be sure to drop them in the comments below. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Danny, for hosting.
Thank you, Danny.
Bye.